What's up, guys? Flowforge here. Today I wanted to talk about how some actions take quite a while, probably longer than you would think. And I do specifically mean tasks here, not necessarily um, success in general, which success in general does take a long time. But part of the reason it takes a long time is because there are many minute tasks that seem simple at first, but are actually full of all these little hoops and aren't very intuitive, and you're just gonna have to like forge through and klutz about and fumble around until you reach the goal. The world is full of these sort of tasks that deceptively make it seem like you just do X. You know, like, oh, just do X. And then you get into it, and it's not that easy. And it takes a lot of time. And there's all these little, like, quirks and things that pop up. And this is very prevalent in computers, right? And I want to share with you a mindset that helps me uh, not to get stressed out when this happens, right? So, what I tell myself is that I have computer patience. And this, right now, I'm talking about computers, but we'll get into other things later. So, specifically for computers, I tell myself I have computer patience. And computer patience is a special kind of patience that is like normal patience, but even more. Because computers are fiddly and wonky, and they tell you that things just work, but they don't. You have to make them work. And you're going to have to go through threads. You're going to have to troubleshoot. A lot of people watching this may already know about this kind of process, but some of you may not have upgraded to this yet. Some of you may just be in that kind of state where you run into a problem on a computer and you're just like, well, SOL, I guess, you know. But I highly recommend that you give this a shot. Instead of getting angry at your computer or angry at your phone when it's not doing exactly what you want it to do, you just remind yourself, oh, it's a computer, so I need to have computer patience when I'm using it. With any system, any type of computer, any type of app, any type of anything, they all promise instant and easy, and 9 times out of 10, that's not what you get until you forge the workflow, and then you get that. But now we're going to move into the other part, which is workflows and changing workflows. So when you change workflows, when you have something that you forge and it works and it's like, oh, this is streamlined, it's buttery smooth. Let's say you move on to a different computer or operating system, or let's say you have to transfer files from here to there, or even just like any type of workflow. So maybe you're working in the office and you're doing something, and then your boss gives you a deadline, and then you have to switch over to a different workflow that you're not used to. Well, you're not going to know what you're doing, and you're going to have to take some time to figure it out. And so the mindset shift here is that computer patience is the start. This is like it's what you start with. And then you have to mature and realize, oh, computer patience applies to everything. Like, really, it does. Everything that you think should just work doesn't just work. That's the realization. If somebody is going to do something for you, and you know, like, it only takes them 2 seconds, and you say, hey, man, do you mind doing this for me? Like, yeah, sure, I'll get it done immediately. That's not how people work. It's not going to get done immediately. They're going to dilly-dally, they're going to fiddle, and it's going to take multiple days and you bugging them multiple times before they actually do it. And you don't need to be mad at them, but you do need to understand this and plan it ahead of time, right? Or like when you're sending emails, it takes people time to respond, right? So there are certain tasks where when you have to rely on an outside agent, whether it be a computer or a new workflow or another human being, Like, you have to understand that there's this unpredictability that's present in regards to time. You have no idea how long it's going to take. You may think that it should take X, but you need to apply computer patience, everything patience, to people. Okay? It really takes quite a lot to get somebody to do something sometimes. So sometimes you have to remind them multiple times. This is something that I wasn't really used to when I started business, but I had to get used to pretty quickly. Is sometimes you just need to bug people over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it feels uncomfortable, but you have to learn how to do it. If you want to get a lot done in society, you can't just be waiting on people all the time. That's not good. It's not how it works. You can't be waiting on something all the time. I guess that's where I'm taking this, is that there are some things you can do to speed it up. And I need you to have a mental framework where you really stop and think and don't just be like, well, I'm waiting for X. Like, I'm waiting on X. You shouldn't really be waiting on anything. If there's a way to avoid waiting, then you should be doing it. If you cannot avoid waiting, then you have to wait. But I almost guarantee that you have things that you're doing right now that you're telling yourself, I have to wait for this, but there is something that you could be doing to speed up the process, even if it's uncomfortable. Okay? Even if it's something like going to a building, going to the receptionist, dinging the buzzer, and they're like, can I help you? Da da da. Like, get out of here. I don't want to deal with you. And then you're like, no, I really, really need to do this. Like, you have to be insistent. Like, this needs to happen now, and I'm not going to take no for an answer. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. And it's not that you have to be mean. You know, it can seem very Karenish. But the objective is not to be mean. It's to be stern. And it's to basically fight for your rights to get things done, because this receptionist doesn't really care about whatever you're doing. So the only way that she's actually going to get you whatever objective that you need from her, that you need her help for, is by bugging her. Like, the only way is by making it very clear that you're a nuisance, and the only way that you as a nuisance are going to go away is if she does the thing that you need help with. Right? The key here is to not be a jerk. It's to just understand computer patience is also people patience. So you need to have people patience. Understand that their brains are they're not in a position to care about your stuff because they don't know, and they don't have any mental connections. They don't have any chemical reactions going on in their head about you. Like, you're just an outside force that's honestly kind of annoying. So you have to have people patience and understand that it's not their fault that they don't care. It's just that they have no means by even which to even have an inkling of caring a lot of times, right? Unless you build that with somebody. But there's really no appropriate way to do this in society unless it's like somebody that's your friend and you know them and you're like, okay, no, I really need this to get done like right now. And if it doesn't get done right now, there's going to be consequences. You know, you might have a conversation like that with your friend or an employee that works for you or something. This is a skill you need to learn in life. You need to learn how to bug people, and you also need to learn how to accept that things just take longer than they are. And I'm going to give you a rule of thumb here for understanding time. However, if it's a long-term project, okay, like if it's a project that's going to take you months, oftentimes you can cut the deadline in half and still complete it in that time. And you think that it's going to take longer than it will. Okay? If you think it's going to take years or months, you can oftentimes cut the deadline in half. That's how long it'll actually take if you seriously lock in for it. Okay? However, if it's a short task that you just think, oh, this will take me 10 minutes, what I want you to do is I want you to double the time. And then that will typically be closer, sometimes under, sometimes over, but closer to how long it will actually take. This is a rule that I live by, and it seems to work. So when you think that you're just going to just go do something, and that's how you can catch it. If you in your mind ever say just, oh, I'm just going to, that is your indication that you need to double the amount of time that you think it's going to take, because life is messy. You're going to run into weird quirks and roadblocks and all these different things that are actually going to frustrate and stop you. And then you are left wondering, well, why don't I have enough time? And the sad thing is that our brains are really, really bad at noticing in this. So we will live with this for years. I know that I lived like this for years, just always wondering, where the hell is my time going? Where the hell is my time going? Like, it should only take X amount of time. And I've met a lot of other people with ADHD who also have this issue where they think it's just going to take X amount of time. And neurotypicals do this as well. But it never just takes X amount of time. It always takes at least 2X amount of time. Sometimes you're lucky and it's less. Sometimes it actually does just work. But honestly, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't. So you need to plan this in your productivity, and you need to understand that these sorts of things where you might be waiting on an outside system, or there might be confusion in porting over to something or switching to something unfamiliar, you need to understand that it's going to take time, and you need to be patient. And you need to have that expectation up front that it's not just going to work. Things typically do not just work unless you make them. Okay? And this is why I like Linux. Because Linux up front does not tell you it's going to just work. Microsoft does. And for the most part it does. Windows. For the most part, Windows does just work. However, when something goes wrong, it can be very frustrating, especially when it's the type of thing that is telling you that it should just work. But I like Linux because after I switched to Linux, I understood that this is my system. And it's private, and it's mine, and anything that breaks on it is my fault, and I have to be the one to fix it. And so this changes your mindset to slow down, and it also gives you a more creative and creator mindset, where it's like, I can work on this and I can make it work exactly how I want, because there's always a way to make it do pretty much exactly what you want. There's always some workaround to make you happy. It's just you have to actually sit down and do it, and it takes time. You have to have patience. You have to have computer patience, okay? So that's the video I wanted to make today. And if you couldn't guess, this video is releasing a little bit late because I had to deal with a little bit of computer patience. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this framework helps you. Have a good day.